Keith Sykes is an icon in the world of singer-songwriters. You know, if there was a Mount Rushmore for songwriters, Keith Sykes would be planted right up in the middle of it. More than 100 of his songs have been recorded by the likes of Roseanne Cash and Jimmy Buffett and the Gentrys and George Thorogood, just to name a few. And Keith has played every corner of this country in every type of venue you can imagine. He's also appeared on Saturday Night Live and Austin City Limits, and he was also featured on a radio program called the King Biscuit Flower Hour. Now, if you remember the King Biscuit Flower Hour, then that means you're not as old as me. And he's also hosted a songwriter series on Memphis's legendary Beale Street, which features some of the best songwriters around. And he's considered one of Memphis's most highly regarded music figures. And we got the chance to talk to him for about an hour. And we went all the way back to his early days, the beginnings. You won't believe where he started, but he'll tell us about it. And he brings us right up to the present day and what he's doing now. So enjoy the interview. Hey, Keith, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing good, doing good. Now, you've been performing for over 40 years. I mean, you've become just a singer-songwriter icon. I mean, I know that just by your connections with Jimmy Buffett. I mean, that's when I first became aware of you, and then also through Todd Snider. Now, when did you start out? What was your first gig?
Well, my first real gig, outside of just doing guest sets and little things at local clubs, was in February of 1968. Well, in the late 67, I auditioned for the Holiday Inn circuit because they were based out of Memphis, and I was in Memphis at the time. And I went over there to audition, and I got on. I played. The auditions were held at Phillips Studio, historic studio, and I'd hitchhiked up to Newport that summer for the Newport Folk Festival. And I heard Arlo Guthrie sing Alice's Restaurant, and it blew my mind. So the record came out, I guess, around September, you know, and I learned the whole damn thing. And after that, I went over to the Holiday Inns to see if I could get an audition to get on the Holiday Inn circuit, because it wasn't a bad way to make a living at that point, at least for me, being 19 years old. And the guy came running out of and it turned out the guy who ran out, I didn't find out till years later, was Judd Phillips, you know, Sam's brother's son. Anyway, he said, man, there's this much tape left on the reel, because that song was like 20 minutes long.
Yeah, it's a long song.
And he kept letting it roll and roll and roll. And I guess about halfway through, he got amused to see if I'd actually make it to the end of the reel of the tape. But I remember this kid come running out, and he says, man, you had that much tape left. And so I got on the Holiday Inn circuit, and they flew me in February of 68. They flew me from Memphis to Charleston, South Carolina for a 2-week run there at the Holiday Inn right downtown in Charleston. Mm-hmm. And in hindsight, what a beautiful way to start off. You know, I just loved that. And I made $150 a week, my room, my board, and my round trip. They paid everything and gave me $150 a week to play at this bar 6 nights a week, at the little Holiday Inn bar there. And so I was off and running playing Holiday Inn bars. And the end of that summer, about August, towards the end of August, I had worked all summer in Buffalo, New York, just outside of Buffalo, actually, in a suburb called Tonawanda, which is right on the way to Niagara Falls. Mm-hmm. They were busy all summer long, completely full at this Holiday Inn where people going to see Niagara Falls. And so they put me up in a little bitty mom and pop motel across the street from the Holiday Inn. So that's where I stayed. But I worked every day.
You didn't get to stay in a Holiday Inn?
They would just said, man, this is our season. If we don't make it now, we ain't gonna make it. So you're staying over there, bud. But I got my food, and I got my $150 a week and all that kind of stuff. So it was a good thing. And met some cool people coming in and out of there. And one of the guys was a guy named Mark Goldfarb. He was a bass player, and we got to be friends. And he told me about the Coffeehouse circuit out of New York City. So after my gig was over in Buffalo, we flew over to New York City and auditioned for the Coffeehouse circuit. And that's when I really actually got started. I went on, I played for 6 years on that thing.
You actually have to, I didn't know that, I mean, I had heard of the Coffeehouse circuit, but I didn't know it was organized like that to where you had to audition for it.
Yeah, well, you had to audition to get on the audition. You know, you auditioned at the bitter end Coffeehouse, and the real auditions at 4:30 in the afternoon. I remember George Terry was the sort of the guy, the guru running the thing. He's a comedian up there. Mm-hmm. And I'd never really heard of him, but I did for sure after that. I found out who George Terry was. He's a funny guy. But anyway, about 4:30 we went and auditioned. We passed the audition, so we could go audition. And then the audition was that night. And we passed that too. I was too scared to stay around the club. I went walking down the street just to window shop. The village was just popping like crazy, but it was so cool. And I just felt entirely at home. Anyway, Mark comes running down the street and finds me and says, "We passed. We got on. We can go play colleges." I said, "Okay, great."
Well, you must have met a lot of people on that circuit.
Man, I met everybody. The next day, I met Jerry Jeff Walker because I didn't know it at the time, but the people who had the Coffeehouse circuit had a management company. They asked me who I liked, and I told them, I said, well, on the jukebox just this late summer, I heard this record, Mr. Bojangles. I love this guy named Jerry Jeff Walker, and I went off about Jerry Jeff Walker, how much I love this song. I was over there on the phone, and 20 minutes later, Jerry Jeff walks through the door. They managed him, and I didn't know that. So the second day I was in New York City, I met Jerry Jeff Walker, and through Jerry Jeff, I met so many people.
And how old were you then when
19.
you got 19 when you got to meet him? And
he's 5 years older than I am, but we hit it off immediately, and he just grabbed me and took me home with him. He put me up at his house. I stayed there nearly a year. He was always gone, and I was gone almost all the time too. But when I was in New York, I stayed at Jerry Jeff's. Like I say, and a few months later, they'd even moved down to Key West. And I guess this is before that, though. They were still living there when I stayed there until I found my apartment. And the apartment that I found was the building where Jerry Jeff used to live, where Jerry White still lived. And just through those guys and being in the village all the time, I wasn't working, which was almost all summer long. I was in the village almost all the time because I did very few gigs during the summer because college wasn't open, or at least wasn't the main thrust. It didn't have all the activities and stuff. It's just, I guess, the real studious people working on their doctorates and whatever in the summertime. Most people weren't there. They were out for the summer. So I had kind of a same schedule I had in high school. I would just work all the school year long, and I was making good dough, and they paid all the expenses. My rent was $80 a month, so I'd have plenty of money in the bank for the summertime. I could just cruise through and live off the money I'd save. And I did that for the whole time I lived in New York City.
Well, now before you moved to New York, though, you actually you had a couple of songs recorded by other people before that, though, right?
I did. My first manager was from Memphis. His name was Dusty Rhodes, and he had a television show on the local NBC affiliate. And that was in the 60s when, at least in the South, at least everybody in Memphis anyway. Yeah. Every Saturday afternoon, they'd line up these half-hour syndicated country music shows. And his was the first one they did because it was the local-based show. And they'd have the Wilburn Brothers, they'd have Flatt and Scruggs, they'd have Ernest Tubb, they'd have Porter Wagner, they'd have all these shows. And Saturday afternoon was for me, fantastic because I saw all these great country music performers on these shows and music. I'm from Kentucky. I mean, there's country music in my blood. I just can't help it. I love soul music and blues and all that stuff. I really, really do. It's in my blood too. But that music was right there in me. And I used to watch it. And I just got to where I'd go over and hang out at that television station just to see what would happen. I just had balls of steel in those days, I guess. I don't know what it was, but
when you're young.
Yeah, they kind of took me in and listened to my songs, and Dusty started managing me, took me up to Nashville and got me a publishing thing with the Wilburn Brothers company, Surefire Music, which is my first publishing company. I've had one song before that, Gentrys, a band out of Memphis, that had a top 5 record on Keep On Dancing. Even when they were in high school, they were stars.
Gentrys with Larry Raspberry.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
They cut one of my songs, and then the Wilburn Brothers did one of those songs, and also Dusty's Daughters had a duo called the Lonesome Rhodes, Rhodes, because they're Dusty Rhodes. They were well connected, and the two Rhodes sisters went on to form Rose Chalmer Rhodes, which was one of the premier background vocal groups of the 70s. Anyway, I didn't stay with Dusty too long. My heart was at that point really focusing on folk music and singer-songwriter type music, and I just felt like country music wasn't really me. I wasn't writing barroom songs or anything like that. So I wound up going to New York and ending the relationship with Dusty, and like I say, everything else at that point was about the same. I got the Holiday Inn thing on my own. It didn't have anything. I just went over there to try it out. I don't think Dusty had anything to do with that. If I'd have stayed and wanted to be in Nashville and do country music and stuff, Dusty would have been in place. And I wanted to go on and do the Coffeehouse scene and all that kind of stuff. And he just wasn't connected to that part of the world. So I went with the company that I went with up in New York City.
Now, at what point, where in there, you toured with Jerry Jeff for a while?
Off and on, just off and on. Just
off and on, yeah.
Mainly my gigs were at colleges.
Okay.
You know, I'd go out for 2 or 3 weeks and do colleges, and you know, I'd do 10 or 12 colleges just in Texas. That would be the end of that. I'd do a Midwest tour. I'd do colleges in Wisconsin and Minnesota and stuff like that, and then that would take up 10 days, 2 weeks or whatever.
And back then, you were still mainly folk music.
Yeah, all singer-songwriting folk music, contemporary folk music is what they called it then. I think they called it Americana. But, you know, I'd do a West Coast swing, I'd do whatever. But, you know, there were about 75 colleges that I'd play. I don't know if I probably did about 75 a year, you know.
Yeah.
And through the season. And then I'd have that summer off.
But were you also recording in those days?
Yeah, I got a deal with Vanguard Records and did my first 2 records for them. And the first one was called Keith Sykes, and the second one was called 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3 was really, I think it has some memorial songs on there. Guy Clark is one of the big fans of that record, and Steve Earle. They tell me how much they think that record is a great record.
Wow.
But with me, I was very frustrated because I started cutting the record in muscle shows, and I didn't realize it, but I didn't have Vanguard's blessing to do that.
Oh.
My manager thought I could go down there and cut this record with Don Nix, and he'd bring it up there and play it for them, and everything would be fine. It didn't work like that. They didn't want the record. So I said, well, if I can't do that, I'll just go in and cut the record all by myself in New York City, which I did.
Yeah.
And then I did the worst thing you could do. I said, I'd like to be off this label. You know, I didn't realize you just don't do that because they're more than happy to get you off the label if you want. So I did. I got off the Vanguard thing and just floated around. After that, I was getting tired of New York. Not tired of it, but I just felt like I had to open up and do more stuff. Some of my buddies were doing much better than me. Some of them about the same, some of them not as much, but I wanted to try to see where I was still finding myself musically. So I moved down to Austin, Texas, and stayed there about 7 months. Then I've been going to Key West for a couple of years, or down in that area, southern Florida.
Just to hang? Just to hang out?
And soak it up. Yeah, just to hang and soak it up. That's always been one of my favorite things of life is to travel and see places that you dream about. I've been able to do that.
Yeah.
My dog. Did you hear my dog?
Mine's right under my desk, so.
Mine's over here starting to yap. At least the bird's on the screen porch. I don't think we can hear him when he tunes up.
No, not a problem. Well,
anyway, I know I'm meandering a little bit. It's hard for me to I should try to get a timeline and just go, okay, this.
No, don't worry about it. No, you've been so many places, and I mean, I'm sure there's going to be quite a few parrot heads coming on to watch this, and I'm a longtime parrot head too. The story when you first met Jimmy, I read it on your bio, but I think everybody'd like to hear that one because just picturing it was something else.
Like I said, I'd gone down to Key West a time or two, and But I just sort of got there, drove around, and went back, you know.
Uh-huh.
And so next time I wanted to go down and see if I could hang out a little bit and meet. Jerry Jeff was on the road. I got his girlfriend and asked her, because I think they met in Key West, if I'm not mistaken. She's a Florida girl. She said, go down there and find Ashley Simmons, told me the corner where she lives, and,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd be in like Flynn with all these people. So I go down there and I found the corner. And beautiful old conch house there, and I went up to the courtyard. There was a guy sweeping up the courtyard. I said, is Ashley Simmons here? And he said, well, who wants to know? I said, I'm Keith Sykes. I'm a friend of Jerry Jeff Walker. And he told me about it. And he said, oh, you're Keith Sykes. Well, I'm Jimmy Buffett. And not too many months before that, I'd been on tour with Jerry Jeff up in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some days during the daytime driving, and we didn't have to play, so we would just take in the sights. And he was telling me about this guy, Jimmy Buffett. And I swear, he said, one of the things that I remember, he said Jimmy Buffett was getting disgusted because when he would play somewhere, people would come in and go, where's the food? You know, they thought it was Jimmy Buffett or something. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, everybody knows his name
He
now.
told me about Buffett and said Buffett was a cool songwriter he'd been doing some stuff with. And evidently, Jerry Jeff had told Jimmy about me because we kind of knew each other when we met. We've been friends ever since.
Yeah.
And and I met the people that I met the next day are still friends of mine. It's just, I really did. Just like Murphy said, I met some really cool people and they've been friends. And that's how I met Jimmy. We hit it off, and he didn't have a deal yet. But he was almost. He had those two Barnaby records, which I never even heard to.
But that was you met him before he got the big deal with ABC.
Before he got the deal with ABC. And I thought he was a jock or something, man, because he's always, let's go swimming, let's do this stuff. Doesn't seem like any songwriters I met up in New York City, you know. We didn't give a crap about any of that stuff. Let's lay around and play guitar and sing and do stuff, you know. But he was just a different kind of person. And but then I was in Austin. I was living in Austin, and we were down at Castle Creek, which is a club I used to play at quite often.
Mm-hmm.
Heard this music coming over the thing, and I recognized the bits and pieces of it. I said, damn, that must be Buffett. I went over and asked her, yeah, that's Buffett playing. That album turned out fantastic.
Which song was that?
Died in 3/4 time. Just the whole. I think the song that I looked up and I knew that was him when I heard the congas and the stuff, and you know, wasn't crunch guitars or legs. I knew it was just a cool, different kind of thing.
Right.
And I think what I was hearing was Cuban Crime of Passion. I didn't know the songs well enough to know which one was which.
Right. Okay.
But anyway, this whole thing just sounded really good, and it did pretty good. Don Light, his manager, told me it managed to sell 80,000 copies, almost exclusively, all in Florida and Texas. He said, in Florida and Texas, we got it going on.
Yeah.
Well, hell yeah, if you got it going on in Florida and Texas, you can do really good.
Yeah.
Jimmy, you know, the next album, I had left Austin and broke up with the girl I was with, and all heartbroken, went to Austin. Jimmy was on the road and said, you can stay at my place till I get home. Then you got to get out. Okay. And so I was staying in his little apartment, and he came back and had a test pressing of the new record.
And that was his place down in Key West you stayed at?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Before in Key West, I stayed at Ashley's place. She had a big old conch house, and I just had a room, and she just let me stay there. But this time, you know, like I say, Jimmy was on the road, and it wasn't a big place, so he wasn't, after being on the road for a month or so, you're ready for some little, let me find who I am again, you know, because you don't on the road. And he said, when I get home, you got to leave. And I said, oh, I understand. That's fine. You're in, you're out.
Yeah.
But I just went, you know, downstairs or where I had friends by that time all over the place, so I don't even know where I stayed. I just stayed here, wherever I went. And Jimmy and I were hanging out, and he'd come back and had the test pressing, and he played me come Monday, and you just couldn't help but know that's going to be a hit.
Yeah, that was a big one.
You'd have to be just completely from Mars not to get that.
Yeah.
There was a place available for him at that label, and he was moving into where Jim Croce was.
Yeah.
And for that moment, you know, that passed pretty soon. They figured out Buffett was going to be a totally original thing.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that you know, those are some early memories
Yeah, well, then he recorded a couple of your songs, one of which is one of my all-time favorites, The Coast of Marsalis. And, I mean, that's just a beautiful song. But that you had recorded that already.
For the Son of a Sailor album. He also did Last Line. It's on the same album.
Right.
And of course, you know, for that album.
And that was on that was on Son of a Sailor, which followed from Changes in Latitudes, which was a huge one.
He did Changes, and then to kind of put another record out immediately, he did a live record. So while he could gather his creative juices long enough to put a real studio record together.
Right.
And the next studio record was Son of a Son.
And that was a good one to be on. A follow-up, I mean, that must have worked out really well for you.
It sold 1 million practically out of the box.
Yeah, yeah. Did you tour with him too?
I did after that. I toured on, actually, You Had to Be There was my first tour, which was, no, that was the Son of a Sailor record, album tour we were on, because that had been out. So maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe it did. I don't know, man. You know, I used to know all this stuff so good. Now I don't know crap. Well,
I'll have to contact the people at BuffettNews.com, because they had it down that you didn't tour with him at all, and I knew you did. So
yeah, I toured with him for a year in 1979.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So that was a big turning point, and then you also were part of the recording sessions for Volcano.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. In '79, that's when we wrote that song when the album was done. Really.
Yeah.
Just the last thing that we did, we wrote it right down there and recorded it immediately, and then became the title cut to the record. When we recorded, if memory serves, we recorded Volcano, the album, in May, in June. So we toured in May, recorded in June, and we had July off and didn't do another tour till September. I mean, no, August, excuse me. And in July, that month, we had off. I guess all the players pretty much did gigs when they weren't on the road with Jimmy.
Oh, really?
And I was no exception. So I recorded I had enough songs to do an album. I'd actually written an album worth of songs for my background, for my band. That we, you know, because I was on the road all the time with Jimmy for most of the time. They had to figure out a way to live, so they were doing gigs, and they got to be pretty popular in Memphis. And I came back after recording Volcano with this bag of songs. I was going to get them. They could do the songs, and they'd have a whole album of songs. I would have written it, but they would be the performers. But they fired me.
Really?
They decided they didn't need me in the band anymore.
I thought it was your band.
Well, it was when I was there. It was. I thought it was my band, but you know, it wasn't my band. It's just that, you know, it was my band.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like I owned them. They decided they wanted to do that, and I appreciated that. So I went in and recorded all those songs by myself, and I'll be damned, we put it out, and it started doing okay locally, and it got picked up by MCA. Well, actually, it was a subsidiary label called Backstreet that Tom Petty had.
Tom Petty's label, yeah.
Tom Petty's label, Backstreet. Tom Petty hated it when MCA bought ABC.
Yeah, a lot of people were put off by that.
Well, they loved, the ABC fraternity was pretty thick, you know.
Yeah.
Joe, Jimmy Buffett, Steely Dan, all these cool artists. And Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, they were on Shelter, but Shelter was part of ABC.
Part of ABC, yeah.
Anyway, to shut him up, I guess I was talking way out of class here because I don't know, but it seemed like to make Tom happy would just give him a label where he felt like he was autonomous from MCA or something like that went down. I'm not really sure. I didn't really get into the mechanics of it. I didn't really care that much. But the people who worked with him heard my stuff and liked it and wanted that album, and so they picked that record up. And as a result, I had to go promote that record, and they said, you can't do this in Jimmy Buffett's band. You got to go be Keith Sykes. And I went, well, okay. That's what I started off being. I didn't, you know, I love being in Jimmy's band, and but I wanted to do my own stuff, obviously.
Sure.
Even though Jimmy was playing the biggest rooms in the biggest towns and all that stuff, completely a star, That's great, but it's not what I set out to do. Not being someone's band.
So this was about 1980?
1979, the end of
1979,
no,
okay.
79, yeah. This is all at the end of 79 when all that happened. So
Yeah.
I got that deal and then, went off to do my own thing again. So I was just in Jimmy's band for 1 year. I've only been in two bands, Larry Raspberry and the High Steppers.
Yeah.
The Coral Reefer Band.
And the High Steppers, they were just a rocking band. I mean,
You talk about energy. I mean, it was nothing but energy over the top.
And Fingers Taylor
you didn't have
also.
to take amphetamines. You could just go hear that band and wind up amped up.
And Fingers Taylor played with them too, didn't he?
Fingers Taylor was an integral part of that band.
Yeah.
Fabulous band. Fingers had already gone. He was with Jimmy before.
Right from the start.
Raspberry. He was Coral Reefer serial number 1.
Yeah.
Coral Reefer number. And even before, when they were in college.
Right. Yeah, he was the original. Now, getting back to you though. Now in 1980, your direction started changing. The type of music you were doing, and you were on Saturday Night Live. You were on the King Biscuit Flower Hour with Robert Klein.
Yeah.
And I watched the video of Saturday Night Live, and as soon as I watched it, it's like, okay, I remember watching that because back in those days, watching Saturday Night Live was an event. And did that do a lot for you, getting that kind of exposure?
You would think it would, but that Saturday night, I played Saturday Night Live, and we were just over the top excited about it. And then Monday night, John Lennon was killed.
That's right. That was that same weekend.
The media attention just was completely devastated. And
were you still in New York at the time?
No, we left Sunday.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because he got shot that night, didn't he?
Yeah, well, at least it came over the news in Memphis that it was Monday night. And which it just killed everyone. So it killed a little piece of everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And that really took a large hunk out of the next 2 months, which is critical when you're promoting a record like that.
Sure.
There was a couple of records of a pop nature that went on up and made hits during that time, but basically they sort of stagnant for a really pretty good while. And that was the end of my big push for the record company's mind anyway, until the next record.
Yeah.
And the next record didn't do as well. I'm not really sure why. I thought I had some cool songs on there, but it did whatever it did. And then we went back to recording for Memphis Records, which was the original label for that I'm Not Strange, which is the MCA record where I wound up on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
So we recorded a couple more for Memphis Records. And then I just left recording I left performing altogether.
So you focused mainly on recording and songwriting and producing?
Songwriting, producing, and publishing was the main thrust.
Yeah.
Publishing was the reason I wanted to songwrite and produce. During those days, I just decided, it just got to be I was playing the same places to the same people over and over and over again. I couldn't see any way out of anything. It just felt like I was at a dead end, and I don't like dead ends. Just made a big left turn, and I couldn't completely quit performing. I still performed on the weekends to pay the bills because it took a couple of years to. It took a couple of years to get the publishing company to where it was making enough money that we were making a living, and I didn't have to perform unless I just felt. So that's what I did, and I did that 15 years.
Now, a few weeks ago, I interviewed Todd Snider. And about his new album, and that tribute that he did to Jerry Jeff. But I had interviewed him before. It was in 2009, and we talked about you a lot. And because I wanted to talk about how it was that he came to meet Buffett and get that recording contract. That was all through you.
Yeah.
Right? Now I heard his version of the story, and
who knows what that's going to be like.
And I love Todd, but sometimes when he tells stories, you don't know exactly if, is he stretching this a little bit? It was like he just showed up on your porch with a demo tape, and or he met you, or
It's been somewhat romanticized, I guess. Through the years. It's like Albinetta said, "Hey man, never let the facts fuck up a good story." Anyway, yeah, Todd had sent me. Actually, what happened was he sent me a tape. His father was living in Memphis.
Right. Yeah.
Was having dinner or drinks or something at one of the hotels, and the hotel happened to be where my sister-in-law worked.
Really?
And she had talked to him or overheard him say, or somehow they were talking. And he said he has a son living in Texas and is a songwriter. He says, "Oh, my brother-in-law is a songwriter and he did this and that." And so anyway, they wound up somehow he sent me a tape. And they had 3 songs. And I thought, man, they were really cool songs. It's really good. I was just 19 years old.
Yeah.
And so we started a dialogue, and a year or so later, in 1990, he signed with my publishing company, and he wrote for me for 5 years. Wrote for the publishing company for 5 years.
Really?
He wrote himself. He always writes for himself. He don't write for nobody. And then and so I did everything I could to get his songs rolling. And one of the things, since he's a singer-songwriter, was to try to get him a record deal. That's really the only chance I had as a publisher of doing anything. I'm not the big banker powerhouse publisher, obviously, that the big guys are. The big guys just find an income stream, make a big deal like a bank would, and then get in on royalties after they outlay a lot of capital. With me, I just outlaid lots of elbow grease and expertise on the creative end of it, and finally, it took me 3 years, but I finally got him a record deal. And it was through Jimmy's. We started out, we did a little development deal with Capitol Records, which didn't work out. They didn't know what to do with Todd, and Todd didn't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
And Capitol had Garth Brooks. And, I mean, can you see a correlation there? I can't.
Oh, yeah.
Or is it performing and being that kind of a star Todd is? And
Todd's not exactly a Garth Brooks, no.
And Garth Brooks ain't exactly Todd. So
no.
There's 2 fantastic performers, unbelievable performers, but different.
Even though they both had a song by the same name, that doesn't make them brothers.
Well, anyway,
that
didn't work at Capitol. And so Jimmy had set up Margaritaville Records and opened an office in Nashville just almost at that same time. So I just went over there and met with Jimmy and said, "Hey, man, I got this guy. You want to check him out?" And, it took a little bit, but they signed him and did that first record, which did really well for opening salvo.
Right.
And then the business was really beginning to change a lot, so it didn't work completely for Todd at Margaritaville Records for whatever reason. Todd's pretty an oddball guy to try to get along with anyway. I mean, he's gone through 10 managers and on and on and on, lots of record companies and stuff.
And that was when you were still based in Memphis.
I've always been based in Memphis.
Okay.
Ever since I left Florida.
There was also a time in there, was this still at the same time? You were on Austin City Limits too, with Rodney Crowell.
The show was called Rodney Crowell's and Friends. I was one of the friends.
Oh, okay.
So it was a great lineup. It was a
good friend to have, though.
Oh yeah, well it was Rodney,
Crowell.
Guy Clark, John Prine, Billy Joe Shavers, me, and Billy Caswell. 6 of us.
You know what amazes me? I mean, guys of your caliber, the circles that you roll in, the people that you've become close friends with, it just gets me how even talking about Todd, how it seems to go from generation to generation, where it gets passed on, and these just amazing bonds are made between you guys. And
well, Jerry Jeff always said, "Pass it on."
Yeah.
Pass it on. Whatever you get, just pass some of it on.
Man. So I'm sorry, I was getting a little bit off track, but then you switched over to how many did you put out on John Prine's label on Oh Boy?
I just did the one record.
Just did the one?
I wasn't really performing quite yet. I'd done a bunch of demos, and Peter Bennett Al Bonetta's brother was in Memphis working on a Johnny Rivers record. Called me up, and I went over there to hang with those guys a little bit, and I played him a couple of cuts of these demos, and he said, "Man, that sounds great." So as far as I know, he took it to Al.
Mm-hmm.
And Al called me up and said, "Do you want us to put this record out?" I said, "Absolutely." And so they did. It's really, and I still like that record. It's got some really cool, I think some of the best songs I've come up with.
And that was It's About Time.
That's called It's About Time.
Yeah, I've got that one. In fact, I got that from you. I think it was 2006. You opened for Todd up in Portland.
Okay, yeah.
I think it was. I only talked to you for about a minute or so.
That was his 40th birthday.
Yeah, it was his 40th birthday, and it was a great show. And your set was just that was the first time I had seen you live. You know, I was familiar with your music, like I said, through others, but that was the first time I had seen you live. Talked to you for a little bit out in the lobby, but you were busy, you know, signing CDs and selling CDs, so I didn't want to get in the way. But I picked up that one, and I'm trying to remember the other one that you had with you that had just come. I think it had just come out.
It might have been All I Know, or it might have been, I guess it was All I Know.
I think it was All I Know, yeah.
Does it have a blue cover with a white picture on there?
Yeah, yeah.
It's either that one or Don't Count Us Out, probably, because I don't think I'd done Let It Roll yet. I may have, but
no, actually, it was Let It Roll. Yeah, because
I
I remember the cover. Yeah, I don't have it right handy, but anyway, so at some point there, you got back into touring.
Well, what it was, I went out on a tour with Todd in 2000 just to do a few days. He'd always ask, "You want to come out and do a tour?" And something would always happen. But finally it worked out. And somewhere about halfway along the tour, I thought to myself, you know, I like this. I've forgotten how much I liked doing that.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, I've been going to Nashville all these years, working months at a time up there. And it seemed like if I went to Nashville, I'd get the same amount of work done as if I just stayed home. I mean, I don't know why, but the catalogs have a way of kind of creeping around and finding interest on their own. You know, kind of like catalogs in groups of songs.
Right.
And so I thought, well, I can just sort of let the catalog rest, or let me working on it rest, and get back into performing again, because you know, I'm not trying to be a big star or anything like that. I just want to go back and play and be
Had
one
you
of
missed it?
I did. I didn't realize it till that tour. So that was in 2000. In 2001, I spent most of that year putting together that record called Don't Count Us Out.
Okay.
And I'd hit on a bunch of my friends to see if they'd come and play on it with me, and they all said yes. It was really, really cool.
Yeah.
Put it out, and it started getting around and getting my name back out again. So I started touring essentially from 2002 on. I've been doing this. Okay, for 11 years now, I've been doing that. And
It's funny how time flies.
Until I can't do it anymore, I'll keep doing that.
Now, your latest CD, I was surprised that was the first all blues CD that you put out. It's a Buck Snort Blues. But I mean, you've put out blues songs before, but this is the first just total collection of all blues. And there's only one cover on there, right? The rest are all originals.
One cover, and that's the title cut, Buck Snort Blues.
Yeah.
That was written by Jed Zimmerman.
So what made you do that? Just the desire to put out an all blues
Well, first
collection?
of all, this is not a blues record in the traditional sense of there's a boogie woogie song to start, and then it breaks immediately down to a slow blues jam song like Stony Monday or something. It's nothing at all like that. You could probably call it a singer-songwriter blues record if you wanted to.
Yeah, it's not like traditional.
But it's got a lot of country overtones to it, because I cannot wash that part out of my system, and I don't want to.
And a few of the songs, I mean, really, really rock too. I mean, my favorite cut off of there was "I Got That Going for Me."
From here. Now that's a kind of a hard blues, blues band song. I mean, they're all blues songs in that sense, but I didn't record them with the traditional blues sounds. It sounds more like I don't want to say ZZ Top. There are a million times better than me.
Yeah, but it's got some of that in it, though.
Got some of that in it. It's like electric rock blues or something like that.
Now, I know you got your guitar with you. Was there something you wanted to do, or?
Well, I've got a new record, actually, that came out in January. It's not for sale on the tradition. It's only for sale on my website and when I play live. It's not on the...
And what's the name of that?
It's called 20 Most Requested.
Oh, okay.
It's just me by myself playing the 20 most requested songs I get out live. And it's not brand new songs. A few of them are pretty new that have never been on any other record. But I could play one of those, or I could play one from...
and that's where Graybeard and Whiskers is on that.
Graybeard and Whiskers is on that one, yeah.
Yeah, that's a...
Okay, why don't I do a Buck Snort Blues for you?
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Let's see how that comes out. I'll have to... I don't even know if I'm in tune. Perhaps I should check that. Well, do you know what a perfectly tuned guitar sounds like?
No.
Good. You're going to like this. It's going to be one of your favorite performances.
I mean, I know what they sound like when they're way out of tune, but just a little out? No.
All right, then. Well, I think we're going to get along fine. You want me to do this where you can see the guitar?
It's totally up to you. I mean...
Well, let's see what this does.
Yeah, see, that's a little bit better.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I was heading northeast in my 3/4 ton. She was heading southwest, making a run, just like she's done 100 times before. But this time was different. This time was strange. This time was one of those you can't explain. And the tears rolled down when she slammed the door in my face. Buck Snort Blues breaking me down. Cheap hotel in a halfway town. She broke my heart. She broke the news when she sent me back to Memphis with the Buck Snort Blues. In the wink of an eye, my baby was gone. I turned up a Hank Williams song. Those wedding bells will never ring for me. But there was Jack Daniels from the other night. We were mixing it up, starting to fight. It was down the hatch and down the lost highway. Yeah, the Buck Snort Blues breaking me down. Cheap hotel in a halfway town. She broke my heart. She broke the news and sent me back to Memphis with the Buck Snort Blues. Buck Snort Blues breaking me down. Cheap hotel in a halfway town. She broke my heart. She broke the news. Send me back to Memphis with the Buck Snort Blues. Send me back to Memphis with the Buck Snort Blues. Send me back to Memphis with the Buck Snort Blues.
All right. It's a cool song. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the whole CD, I've listened to it a few times over now, and That's not typical of the whole thing. I mean, it's got so many different influences in there on your stuff. Now, you said that's the only cover tune. Who was that written by?
Jed Zimmerman.
Oh, okay.
Jed Zimmerman wrote that. His name was really Dylan, but for entertainment purposes, he changed it to Zimmerman.
You know, as much as I love that song, Gray Beard and Whiskers, I'm glad you didn't play it, because it's really hard to continue the interview if I'm wiping tears from my eyes, because that one is just a tearjerker. You know, it's one of those you're listening to it, and then all of a sudden it hits you what you're singing about. But it's a beautiful song.
It's kind of ironic that this interview happened today, because just yesterday actually was the day before we lost a dog we'd had for 13 and a half years.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I mean, it was for the best. He was really old, and he couldn't do it anymore. He was just really hurting everywhere. So we wound up having to put him down rather than just let him languish in that pain. So
yeah,
but it's sad, and everybody's gone through that. Everyone who likes dogs and
exactly, they're part of your family, you know. Exactly. And that was, I mean, I couldn't help but you know, it was in 2007. We had, my wife and I, our dog, we had her for 15 and a half years. Yeah. And we had her from a puppy on. And I realized that was the first time in my life, here I was, you know, an adult, way into adulthood. That was the first time in my life I had ever had a dog from beginning to end. And it was just, you know, if you're really a dog person and you know, they're part of your family, it's like losing part of your family. And but that song just caught all that emotion in just those few minutes, you know.
It's a big hole in your life there, and it's just like not just like when someone dies, but it's just so, there's a very close feeling to that.
It is.
And you just have to get used to them not being around.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Jed Zimmerman. He's going to be part of your
Hot Springs weekend.
Your Hot Springs weekend coming up in June, right? June 1st and 2nd.
June 1st and 2nd in Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Have you been doing that one a few years, or do you do something different every year?
One form or the other for more than 20 years. It started off being actually my wife's birthday party.
Really?
We've been going over to Hot Springs since about 82 or 4 to play, and met some great folks over there. And like I say, that was one of the few places I'd go to and play when I wasn't really playing. When I was I'd just go over there because we get a weekend in Hot Springs and go, you know.
Yeah.
Have a great time and go to the races, or if it was in the summertime, we'd go to one of the lakes, and all that kind of stuff. It's just it's a cool place to hang. And about, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, I don't even know. We started going over, and there was a little hotel called The Park. It only had just a few rooms. And so we'd get the whole dang hotel. I'd play up on the roof, up in this room they had, and then we'd all go to the races, and I'd play there the next night. And it was just a lot of fun to do. And of course, you know, me, my old mind, and one time on the way home, I said, honey, you know, we could get some people to come and do this with us, and we could relax, and we could go to another hotel, and all, you know.
Oh, that's great.
And I don't know how many, I think I've done it. This is probably like the 6th or 7th year I've had people come and play and make it's not really a festival. So we just call it a weekend. It's the Keith Sykes weekend.
So who else? I know Jed
Zimmerman is there.
John Prine?
Richard Lee, John Prine, Roger Cook, Larry Joe Taylor. Delta Joe Sanders is going to be on the Bloody Mary Morning Show along with some newcomers, you know. So it should be a really good, people are really into this in the round thing. So we've decided to do 2 in the round shows, one for Friday night, one for Saturday night. And then we're having the Bloody Mary Morning on Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon, I'm going to interview John Prine.
Oh, really?
I tell you, the first one I did was last year on Roger Cook, and people loved that so much. We thought, well, we'll just do that every year, and one of the songwriters will just feature each weekend and do the interview on. Of course, if John John decided he'd like to come.
Yeah.
It's going to be him. I want to interview him for this weekend.
Okay, so if people want tickets to that, they go to your website?
Yeah, KeithSykes.com. And,
okay.
And we're doing it at the Arlington Hotel. You don't have to stay at the Arlington. It's a lot of fun to stay there. It's the old king of the hotels over there, but there's a lot of other places that are really nice to stay.
Right.
But you get a wristband from us. You can come to all the shows. It's one price for the whole weekend.
Right.
You can come to any one show you want, but you're going to pay the same price, so you might as well just come on and go.
Might as well stay for the whole weekend.
Do the whole thing. So we're really looking forward to it.
Okay, great. Hey, Keith, I can't tell you how much a treat it has been to get to talk to you. I mean, we've been talking for about an hour now, and
I didn't even know. I guess we have.
Yeah, but it's just really a treat. I really appreciate your time. And
I'm going to do a song for you just to tell you how I feel about it.
Take us out.
The pleasure is all mine.
Cool.
Some days the hawks and eagles fly, other days it's jays and crows. Sometimes it's like I can't get high, but other times I can't get low. Each time it's windy and warm, without a cloud up in the sky. There's one so weathered and worn, the sun refuses to come by. But each day I get out of bed, no matter how I plan my time. I know some pain will come and go, but the pleasure is all mine. I still remember how it felt with my fingers in your hair, touching the hand that I was dealt to the answer of my prayer. And though it was long ago, I never found a better treasure. And no matter who I know, compared to you is how I measure. Sometimes when my spirit is sinking and I surely need a lift, I try to make me keep on thinking. Every day I live is a gift. It's been forever and a day when we were young and in our prime. And though the time has slipped away, the pleasure is still all mine. Sometimes when my spirit is sinking and I surely need a lift, I try to make me keep on thinking. Every day I live is a gift. It's been forever and a day since we were young and in our prime. And though the time has slipped away, the pleasure is still all mine. And though the time has slipped away, the pleasure is still all mine.
Great, man. Thanks. Now, mutual
Thanks
pleasure.
for having me. All right, then.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed the interview as much as I enjoyed doing it. Man, it was a trip talking to Keith. So be sure to check Keith out on the road or go to his Hot Springs Festival in Hot Springs, Arkansas. You can get all the information at KeithSykes.com. And thanks again for coming to Our Kind of Music.